just introduce my topic now. So I will be talking on MongoDB Atlas App Services, which is our backend as a service offering, and I will deploy it on Microsoft Azure, which is your favorite cloud, right? And we'll see how it helps the developer ecosystem. As I already mentioned, we'll take care of the backend and the database, so it will help you all. And this is who am I. I am a staff developer advocate at MongoDB. I recently started in this role. And prior to this, I have around 12 years of industry experience. I've worked with companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Samsung, Make My Trip in the past. If you already know me, I also educate for interview prep. You can connect with me here on LinkedIn and here on Twitter. Quite active on LinkedIn, recently started with Twitter. The story of all of us, like either we work on the front end, or we work on the back end, or we work on the database. Like even if we are part of DevOps, we'll touch base upon all of these three. So I'm taking a step back. My friend here showed replica sets, outages, geo-replicated app. I'll show all that, but whenever you start any application from scratch, you only think about these three. Is that true? How many of you do front end? How many of you do back end? And how many of you do database? Okay, so you need to join hands with each other and then build the end-to-end application. Now, some of you would be doing end-to-end as well, right? So I thought like I'll not start with my intro, I'll start with all of you, because this is where our lives revolve, right? The front end, the back end, and the database. Spinning front end these days is very easy. You can create a React app with one single command. You can create an Next.js app with one single command. Isn't so? Isn't it? But what if I tell you that today I will give you a solution wherein we can take care of your database with the replica sets, with geo-replication, and the backup, and the backend as a service? What will you say? You can do just the front end, care on how fluid your features are, how responsive your app is, and you can take care of the business logic. But rest of all, the infrastructure of backend as a service and the database is on us. I know nothing is perfect and we can have outages, as my friend Abhishek showed, but what if this is all taken care by MongoDB Atlas? It'll be great, right? You will be free to do a lot of other things, lot of side hustles, anything you want, and you will have time to make fluid customer experiences, right? Moving on. Okay. So today the agenda is very simple. I won't talk anything fancy. I'll talk very basics, modern day distributed systems in layman terms, and then I'll explain the technicality, and then I'll take a step back and talk about SQL versus NoSQL, which most of you would be already knowing, but then I would explain it again. And then I'll switch to these, wherein most of it will be live demo, and some of it will be pre-coded, but you can do it within a few hours. If I will be doing it in a few minutes in front of all of you, you can do it in a few hours. And then I'll conclude and open for Q&A. Okay. So the modern day distributed systems. Why I focus on distributed systems? I was talking only about monolith, front end, back end, and the database. But I want to connect to you. Like if you have seen the use cases here, you think about dating, you have Tinder, Bumble. If you want to have get a cab, you have Uber and Ola. And if you want to get food, you have Swiggy and Zomato. But these kind of apps existed 10 years back or 12 years back? No, right? And I'll ask you a question. What happens if Flipkart is down? Will you switch to another app or wait for Flipkart to come up? Switch to another app, the competitor, maybe your Amazon. But what if your bank messages you that, hey, the site is down for maintenance for 24 hours. Do you shift your money overnight? Nobody does that. See, that is where the domain, we always talk about work-life balance of some companies. That is how the domain affects us, right? So that is where the modern day distributed systems have a lot of different expectations. Like you switch to the competitor within a few minutes, wherein applications that existed long back, you would wait for them to come up, or you are okay waiting for them to give you response. So the latency requirements, the throughput requirements have changed extremely, right? So what you want to build is, you want to add features, as much as features possible for your customer. You want to give them everything served on the platter, so they don't go to the competitor, right? And then you want to scale it up, not only up, but also down, because you want to keep the cost at check, right? And apart from that, you also want to follow the GDPR and HIPAA compliances, the data security part. And you also want to make your customers happy by keeping their PII data private, isn't it? And then you want all this to be very, very fast, because you want to increase the developer velocity so that they can innovate rather than, you know, doing menial jobs, right? So in a nutshell, the application's expectations, I'll just go back, I'll cover them one by one. So modern application expectations have become, they should be highly responsive, fit into all your devices. Somebody would be having a different phone, somebody would be having a different laptop, screen size or tab, so it should be highly responsive. Then we should have relevant information. So we should have search engine offering plugged into our apps, so that we can search whatever we are looking for. Otherwise, we could switch to the competitor, right? And then it should be, I think I pressed so much, mobile first. We want to do everything on mobile these days, right? 10 years down the line, we did not think that way. But now we want every app, why it isn't on mobile? Okay, I'll use the other one which is on mobile as well, isn't it? And then we want to follow the privacy regulations. We don't want to get into any lawsuits, because it costs us billions of dollars if we get into any legal compliances. So when you think about geo-replication and going global, you have to follow all the compliances. And you have to keep the data, sometimes you have to keep the data in that region itself. So you want to do that, as well as you want to do some analytics on the data influx you have on your apps, because you want to take good business decisions, right? And apart from that, you also want to be always improving. Like, you want the tech debt to reduce, it will be there. There's no ideal thing, there's nothing is a silver bullet. So there will be tech debt. So you want the performance metrics to actually monitor your app and see where the bottlenecks are and solve them. Is it? Everyone with me till here? But since I told you the apps have changed, the expectations have changed, the working style has also changed, but we are still going to relational databases, which were built, I think, 40 years back. So what happens is, the way we show data in the front end, or we serve the data in the platter to the user, it is totally different from the way we store data in the databases, right? Isn't it? We store it in different entities connected with one-to-one, or many-to-one, or one-to-many kind of relationship, or many-to-many relationships. And when we do take it out for our front end, it is like we do a lot of transformation, and when we put it back again, we'll do a lot of boxing and unboxing. So a lot of developer time goes into that, right? What if we have the data all together? We don't have to fall back on any joins. It will save a lot of developer velocity, and it will be easy and maintainable. So I will show you one sample architecture where our, applications are connected to the RDBMS, okay? Different applications connected to RDBMS. Now we are retrofitting it for the application expectations, modern application expectations I just showed. So what we'll do is, we'll add a caching layer, we'll add some NoSQL DB on based of our use cases, and we'll have a ETL plug to combine all the data from different data sources. Next on, what we'll do is, we wanted to serve relevant information, we wanted to add search on top of our site, so we added some search engine offering. My friend sitting here from Elastic, so we used Elastic or other solutions based out on Lucene, because we wanted natural language search on our sites. Then we wanted it to be mobile first or something, so we added mobile DBs. And we plugged in a sync so that they are always in sync, right? And we also wanted to do some analytics, so we plugged in all this. This is the architecture for many of the applications these days, because we have been retrofitting as and when the problems arise, right? Now imagine a single data platform which will take care of the OLTP, like transactional processing, and the analytics and the search and the mobile sync, and on top of all this, it will give you unified API and the backend as a service, which I am not showing in this slide. And even if you have SQL-based applications, you can connect through drivers. So imagine that this is MongoDB Atlas. And on top of this, we have a backend as a service as well. So I'll show you that in a couple of slides. But I'll take a step back, just because I told you so many things, like it will be developer friendly and it will be faster. Why will it be? I will show you now. So this is a relational data model, and this is a document data model. What are the differences you spot? I'll take a pause and I'll ask you, what are the differences you spot? Anyone? Yeah, joins are not required until unless you have a special use case wherein you want to join different collections. Yeah. So if I have to store a customer, I'll have to store data in all of the related tables. Like for example, I want to store customer address, then I'll save data to address as well as city and country, wherein I'll store everything together, right? And we have arrays of objects, objects of objects, and we can have different special data types as well, like geospatial. Moving on. Just, do not go inside the code snippet, it is Python, but I just want you to look at the quantum of the code, the lines of the code that would be used for inserting a customer using SQL, okay? I'll show you what will happen when you use NoSQL. Just a JSON object and you insert it directly. And this is just, I'm fetching the inserted ID because it will generate a GUID for me. So that is what I'm fetching, but it will just 1 or 2 lines of code if you want to insert. In the previous slide also, I did not generate any user object. This is all inserting. I'm assuming that user already has the data and I'm taking out something out. Okay, so it's not because I'm initializing user object or something. It is because I'm inserting in so many tables, right? So that is where it is developer friendly and it will reduce your effort and time. And we are also flexible. We can add more fields, like the schema can change dynamically without any downtime. If you have a schema change and let's say you added a non-null column to your table, then you need to run scripts, you need to have a downtime. But for this, there is no downtime. You just add more fields, or you remove some fields on the fly, just handle it in your applications, okay? So this is what I talked about, MongoDB Atlas. So it's a complete data platform. I talked about this in my previous slide, right? The layer which will take care of the transactional and the analytical things and different kind of data types. And now I'm saying there is a serverless tier as well on top of it, which will give you functions to take care of your backend, triggers like you do insert update and it will trigger something for you, the functions for you, right? And then we have the REST endpoints and the GraphQL endpoints as well as the live device sync with your mobile. So that is what we offer. So this is the whole thing we offer. This I have already showed and this I'm showing in this slide, okay? Without further ado, I'll just go back and I'll show you what I'm going to do today. So this is my Atlas. When you log into Atlas, it will ask you, you can just go to cloud.mongodb.com and it will ask you to start for free. No credit card information is required, okay? I'm already logged in and these are the clusters I have spinned, okay? And this is my free cluster. This is my free. Can you see this free? So this is my free cluster. So it will let you spin one free cluster per project. Like you can divide into projects and organizations. So it will like one free cluster per project. And then can you see this thing? It's deployed on which region? So today I'll be using this one, but I will deploy one cluster just to show you. So it's so easy. I'll just go here, create new cluster, So these are the three options. One is the shared, one is the dedicated, and last one is serverless. So if you're starting your own personal project, let's go to the shared one. Okay, and you can choose your cloud, be it AWS, Google Cloud, or Azure. For example, you want to choose the Azure, and then you can select your region, and you can choose your cluster tier. For example, M0 is totally free, free forever. Can you read that? Did you read that? Can you read that? So it's free forever. So for doing your personal projects, you can use that cluster and get started without any cost forever. Okay? But if you want any backups, then you need to step a little bit higher, M2 or M5. Okay? So for example, let me choose M5 today because I already have a free cluster. I cannot create one more free cluster, but I will choose M5 and I'll try to create this cluster. But stepping back, I'll show you what dedicated had. Dedicated is for your production workloads, and in this you can choose multiple clouds as well. Like you can just switch it on, and then you can add different regions and maybe different clouds as well. Okay? And you can see like highest priority, which Ashish was talking about, like priority, and then the replicas. So that is how you can spin different regions. So you can exhaust 100+ regions from all the three big clouds. But that's for dedicated. And the serverless is apt if you have your side hustle startup idea where you have invariant traffic, you can pay as you go, and you can choose whatever clouds you want to. Okay? Moving back. So I think I have been spinning this one. We just spinned this one, cluster 2, right? I just spinned this one. And this is up and running, and you have this. You can load the sample data set. So to get you started, we have a sample data set as well. You don't have to worry about data set. You can play around with our sample data set, and you just go in this 3 dots and just load sample data set. And you say load sample data set. And it will start loading your data set. Okay? Meanwhile, it's loading. Let me showcase the app services which I was talking about. These are my already ready-made clusters, like I baked them like this within a few minutes. And this is the one I will use for demo today, which is based on Azure Pune. Okay, so my database is done. It's deployed on Azure, right? Now I'll go to backend, because it said I'll take care of your database and the backend. Let me go to app services. I already have it opened. And this is also almost free. Like until we exhaust 1 million requests, 10 GB data, 500 hours of compute, it's free for me. Right? So I've already done a lot of experimentation, but for your thing, I will just get you started. So like you can use these templates if you want to. Like if you want to create a mobile app, you can use these templates, real-time sync, or if you want to get started with React template, or you want to have GraphQL plus React app, there are some boilerplates which you can use, but I will do a blank app from scratch. So what I will do is, I will not name anything, I will just application 2 for this, and I will choose one cluster which is based on Azure. Okay, so my database is on Azure. Now this will also go on Azure. I'll show you how. Now this says, okay, single region, I'll change it, and I'll say I want to deploy it on Azure. And I can choose some region, maybe I'll choose Singapore, which is near to me, and I'll say yes, and I can say this is my development environment. Follow me till here, everyone? So I'll just create this app service. My app service is application 2, my cluster is cluster 1, both will be deployed on Azure. So it's creating my app service. Okay, it has created already. So my app service is created, which will serve as a backend for me. Now I have a few guides, which you can, 10 minutes guide each. You can yourself go and read about it. There will be samples, code samples, example applications, everything. So you can do that. But for now, I don't need this. I can come back later if I need to. What I'll do is, I'll just go to rules. My first step would be going to rules. And it will again explain me that what are we going to do. So we can also view this example that if you want to set up any rules, like role-based access, right? So you can use these rules. And you can, for example, if there is a user who has a role, employee, then it will only let that user access the data. Okay? I'll explain access in a bit. So for example, I'll just go to my, this is my database cluster, which has the loaded data set already. This is the sample data set only. So my cluster one had already loaded the sample data set, and these are the collections already existing. So you can see a lot of collections, but I'll choose one. I'm choosing sample mflix database, and I'm choosing the movies collection. And for now, I'm giving a preset role. Like I'm not making anything custom, I'm just doing a read and write all, okay? And I am saying add preset role. So now it is telling me that you have to always click on save and then deploy. So it will guide you on its own. You don't need anyone to tell you or any YouTube video to tell you what to do, it will guide you. So you say review, draft and deploy. After every changes, it has already saved this change because this was your first change. Review, draft and deploy. My deployment was successful. The rules are applied to my cluster which is sitting on the Azure. Okay? And then if you want to go to schema, you can select the schema. This will come handy when you want to build GraphQL endpoints. So you can just say generate a schema and you can give the document number, like I can give 1000 as well, or anything. So it will sample your documents and generate a schema for you. It did, which you can use. Okay, moving on, I'll go to authentication. This is one important point which we all want to take care of, right? And it takes a lot of time doing this. So there are these many authentication methods we have: allow anonymous, then email password, Facebook, Google, Apple, and API keys, which I will use today, and JWT, as well as you can write your own functions as well for auth. So many ways to authenticate. So let me choose API keys. So I'll edit, and I will create a API key. It will not let me create because I have to save, draft, and deploy. It's deploying changes. Deployment is successful. I'll create an API key. I'll name it as API-key. I'm copying it. It will not show me next time. So I'm copying the key and keeping it handy in my Visual Studio Code. Do not try this at home or office, but I'm keeping it here. Okay? So I'm good, right? I copied the thing correctly. Right? Everyone with me? Stop me if I go too fast. We still have time. So now let me build something on top of it. Let me build some REST APIs. Everyone has worked on REST? So let me build some REST APIs. So add an endpoint. I'll just add an endpoint. Let me say I'll see movies. I'll build basic get movies. Okay. So now you can see that I already have my endpoint which I can use later. But for now, what I'll do is I'll use the get verb. I'll say respond with result. I'll let it choose the return type to be JSON, which is the default. You can also choose eJSON if you want to. Then I say I will add a new function. You can also go to the function tab from here and define your function and then choose it, but I'm doing the other way around. Like from here itself, I have the option to either select any of the existing or make a new function. So I'll just create a new function. Okay? I'll create a new function and I'll say function name is, let's say, get all movies. Okay? For now, I'm making it very rough to get all movies. And there is some boilerplate code already existing to help people. So I will just use that. Okay, and instead of find one, I'll just keep it like this. What was my DB name? I'll type it for you. This was my DB name. Do not worry about the cluster. And my collection name was movies, right? So instead of this, what I'm going to return is, I'm saying collection dot find. If you're already aware with MQL, you will understand, but what I'm trying to do is find the query. Whatever the user will pass the query, I will find that, and then I will do a limit 20, because I want it to be small, right? So that is what I'm doing, and now let me see what is in the console, and pass nothing here in the query, and see if I get something. I'll just try to run it on the fly. Okay, I'm getting some data. Okay, cool. So what I'll do is, and you will say in real world, I will not write plain old JavaScript code, so you can have your add dependencies added as well, NPM dependencies. Okay, and you can write your Visual Studio like code in your IDE and paste it back here. And you can add your NPM packages if required, but for now I'm doing a very simple thing, so I'll not require anything, no additional authorization, nothing, everything is as is, and then I'm saving draft. No, I have saved, now I have saved, I will deploy this. So what we did is, we came to HTTPS endpoint, and we wrote a JavaScript function to back it up, okay? So it gave me an HTTPS endpoints. Now I'll copy this, okay? So it is already deployed, right? So it should work from Postman. And I will not pass anything, like I'll just say, and I'll copy my own API key, like my new API key. Do you see data here? So if I remove the API key, it won't let me access that, but in interest of time, I'm just proceeding with this. So this is what will happen, and let's say I put a title here. Okay, so let me pick this up, and I'll just go to params. And send it again. So I just got this one result. That is how you can do it. And this is your HTTPS endpoint created, up and running for you to be served. Exactly similarly, you can even create your GraphQL endpoint. Just go to this GraphQL tab. It is asking me to generate JSON schema. Let me do it. Generate a schema. And it's done. And I will just save draft. I think I generated a schema, but I did not save a draft. Deploying changes, we will use this as well. Deployment was successful, okay? So now I again go to GraphQL because it has got me to schema tab. Yeah, now it has created. See this query already baked and ready for me. And you can also see schema, like if you add more than one collections, it will give you all the things you would require to use. Like it will club everything and it will keep everything ready for you to use. GraphQL schema is all ready and baked within a single click. And then let's say if I don't want all this thing, I'll just remove this and I'll try to, you have this. This is when I'm trying it in the console, but what I can do is I can just copy this and move here to my Postman and paste this up, and then I will go to the body and GraphQL, and I'll also get my GraphQL query. Okay, sorry. And I think I will have authorization. I'll just say API key. It is getting my API key. I'll try to send. Okay, no authentication. I think I'll name it as API key. Yeah. GraphQL endpoint, HTTPS endpoint. How many minutes I took with the live pressure and with the conference pressure as well? How many minutes? So when I'm working real time at home, how many minutes will I take? 10 minutes, right? And I have 10 minutes left. I'll try to rush up. So this is what I showed. I showed you REST endpoint. I showed you GraphQL endpoint. What I'll do is I'll quickly show you my application, Next.js application. So this is my application wherein I am keeping this some code, and how I got it, I will show you that quickly. You just have to go to this Realm SDK. So, and you select, I'm not on Node.js, so you have these options, okay? Select web. Just install the Realm web package, and then you have this anonymous authentication code, right? You already have this baked code, you can copy, just change your app ID, which you will get from here. You can see that copy button in front of that application too, this thing, right? So you can just copy that, and you can log in. But if you want, you will say, Megha, we will not use anonymous authentication. So just go here, and you can go to, basically you can try enable user authentication, and you can see API keys. So you will get code snippets here. Can you see? Can you see all the things are there? Just need to go into the documentation, or you can search in Google itself, it will get you here, like API way of the authentication. So you can copy this code. So that is what I did. Like most of it, it's just that I made a different function, and at your home or office, keep the keys in some vault or some properties file, but I've kept here, and just running it. 1 minute, I'll just open that. Yeah. I'm running my app. So you can see there is an API key of already existing application and app ID of already existing application, which I'm using with the code, and I will try to run my app. So it's not getting me any data. Yeah, it is getting me some data. See, what I'll do is, I'll remove this year. So it should get me top 20 movies, something like that. So you can pass in your query, you cannot pass in your query, you can write more functions, whatever you want to do, you can build on top of it. And these kind of examples are already readily available on GitHub, on the MongoDev Center. Okay? So we are done with all this. Then I also wanted to show you something known as trigger. So if you do some insert update on your DB, you want something to happen, you can use this trigger. So you can build a scheduled as well as a database, or some kind of authentication trigger also you can do. So I have already made this trigger wherein I have used this function. Okay, it's already there, and what I'll do is I'll show you this function. So I have done nothing, I have just integrated it with SendGrid. So I have integrated it with SendGrid, and what will happen is, I'll just go to my mailbox. Okay, it's there. Let me just insert some data. Can someone of you tell me your name? This is Compass GUI, which I am using for this example, MongoDB Compass, which is very easy to use and you can easily download. So copy the document, and maybe I can just say add data. insert document. So it is also validating errors for me. Okay, 1 minute, I'll just cancel and do it again. It's letting me insert. So I'm just inserting this document to my cluster 1. So it's already connected to my cluster 1 if you see here. Okay. And now my trigger should run and I should have a get mail. Do you see? So I got this because of that trigger function. I rushed a bit. You can connect with me offline if you want to know more on all this. But this and more you can do with your clusters and the backend as a service. And apart from this, I was showing you cluster 2, right? So you can use these connection strings. Like if you want to do with a MongoDB shell, you will get this. I have MongoDB shell installed, so I will say, okay, I can get the ready-made string. So you can get these commands out of this. And if you want to do with Compass, which I just showed you, you can download. Or if you want to download, I do not have MongoDB Compass installed. So you can just install that and you will have the connection string baked up and ready. You just need to add your users and thing in that, right? Username and password. Okay, that is how you connect to your cluster. And see, your cluster is up and running. It has the collections. Like we made cluster 2 if you remember, right? So meanwhile, we were doing all that. Jazz, it's all done. Okay, and you can have database users here, like I was saying, right? In the connection strings, you have to add username, password. Add your users or LDAP groups here, and then you have network access, wherein you add your IPs, which you want to whitelist. So I've already added all my IPs. That is why I was able to do live here, right? I think I'm pretty much done with my demo. How did you find it? Was it okay? Nice. Did it help you? Okay, then what I'll do is, I'll just say Atlas App Services, because front end is easy these days. We have a lot of boilerplate code available, right? And then what I'll say is, Microsoft Azure and Atlas is better together, because we get so much power when you have, database up and running, and then you have so much replica options, and then you can use the entire 100+ regions using those 3 clouds, right? And the conclusion is these things. You go serverless, you don't have to manage infrastructure, it is free. If you want to get started, you saw 1 million requests for free. It increases your productivity, and then pay as you go. Once you exceed those requests, then only you have to pay. Or the database cluster also, you can start up with an M0 and upgrade only when you need it. And the security, you saw so many methods, right? I think 6 or 7 methods. Okay. Fine then, thank you so much, Chennai.